So halve me, and I say this all the time, for being an utter moron. $46 trillion of wealth is about to be created.
It would be easy to add a little crypto thing, which would say, yeah, here I am, and this is what I'm doing.
We have ICP, number one. Eric Schmidt, totally in line with the vision of Ridges. The only reason this channel exists is to find assets that can provide truly life-changing returns. Here's an asset that has given me massive returns recently. People in my Patreon know we owned this asset back here when the chart looked terrible, and it's since done an unbelievably massive move. That is Subnet 62, Ridges. It's one of Bittensor's subnets. It's gone up huge, right? So let's talk about, first of all, why charts that look like this aren't scary, right? Anyone that talks about ICP's chart and says, look how ugly it is, don't buy it, would have told you the exact same thing back here, right? We want assets that are really high quality and that have charts that look like this. Chainlink as well. People would have said, oh, that's a horrendous chart, don't buy it, right? That is when you buy assets. So before we dive into what Ridges Subnet 62 is, let's hear from Raoul Pal, let's hear from Eric Schmidt, multi-billionaire, to talk about where the future of blockchain is headed. Because if you can see the future, you can make life-changing returns. It's that simple. And the people that can see the future are generally the people that control the world's wealth and made massive amounts of money. So first up, Raoul Pal is going to give us the setup, right? What type of environment are we headed into for altcoins in general? Crypto assets, totally undiscovered.
We're a $4 trillion economy today in crypto. If we extrapolate trend rate of growth and assume the network growth slows over time, I think we get to 100 trillion by 2032, 2034. 100 trillion. That means there's 96 trillion of wealth that's going to get created. So halve me, and I say this all the time, for being an utter moron. $46 trillion of wealth is about to be created. It's the largest wealth generation event in all human history. It's fractionalizable to a rice worker in the Philippines as it is to somebody in Fifth Avenue. It is an unbelievable opportunity. And to go back to it, you're front running the institutions and you get to do all of this.
So that's the setup. There's nothing stopping crypto from going from 4 trillion to 100 trillion. Nothing. And we're going to dive into what assets like Ridges are. Can they continue pumping? But first, again, more context. You have to understand how massive this space is. Chainlink partners with Commerce Department to launch on-chain U.S. economic data. There's a reason the U.S. government is putting data on a blockchain, because blockchains provide value to the data. They provide integrity. It can be traced. So that speaks to how the world's value is slowly but surely moving on chain. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars moving on chain. But for a little more context, let's hear from Eric Schmidt. He's the ex-CEO of Google. No one quite understands how big of a baller Eric Schmidt is. Here's just one example. Eric Schmidt has renamed the Kismet super yacht to Whisper after buying it from Shahid Khan for $158 million. That's the kind of money this guy plays with. Super influential. That's why it's just super important. If you want to understand the future, listen to guys like this. Here's what he's saying about crypto.
We also recommend in our work, and I think it's very strong, that the government require that we know where all the chips are. And remember, the chips can tell you where they are because they're computers.
Yeah.
And it would be easy to add a little crypto thing, which would say, yeah, here I am, and this is what I'm doing.
So he's talking about how blockchain, yet again, is going to be absolutely crucial to tracking data. Where are the AI chips? How can the government get control over certain things? That's how blockchain comes in. And he's talking about how it's going to be an integral part of artificial intelligence. You cannot have artificial intelligence without blockchain, without the ability to verify data, again, keeping it on chain. So we're talking about massive scale, huge scale, government data, trillions of dollars of wealth being created, artificial intelligence moving on chain. That's what we're talking about when it comes to these altcoins. We're so early. So obviously we're talking about huge scale, huge scale. So which blockchains are these massive organizations going to be turning to? Well, these are the top blockchains ranked by real-time transactions per second. We have ICP, number one, over 1,000 transactions per second. Then Solana, then BNB chain, then Tron, then Base, Coinbase is Base, then Stellar. So that's just a look at the competitive landscape for these blockchains. They have to scale to meet this massive demand. Again, let's talk about Ridges. Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about the life-changing potential for a lot of these assets. But I just wanted to give you the setup. Massive amount of money moving into these crypto assets, the world's data, the world's value moving on chain. So life-changing potential ahead.
Now, there's 100,000 enterprise software companies, middleware companies that grew up in the last 30 years that I've been working on this that are all now in trouble. If you built a brand new enterprise architecture for ERP and MRP, you would be highly tempted to not use any of the ERP or MRP suppliers, but instead use open source libraries, use BigQuery or the equivalent from Amazon, which is Redshift, and essentially build that architecture, and it gives you infinite flexibility, and the computer system writes most of the code. Now, programmers don't go away at the moment. It's pretty clear that junior programmers go away, the sort of journeyman, if you will, of the stereotype, because these systems aren't good enough yet to automatically write all the code. They need very senior computer scientists, computer engineers who are watching it. That will eventually go away.
Eric Schmidt right there is describing what Ridges does. Ridges is an AI platform where autonomous agents improve themselves through competitive coding powered by contributions from top engineers. So autonomous agents are being wired to improve themselves, and it's a competition. So that is exactly what he's talking about. So Ridges Subnet 62 provides AI software agents that can replace or supercharge human coders. That is exactly what he just said. And he said open source. He said the word open source. He's saying that's better than the previous iterations of this technology. He wants it to be living, he wants it to be breathing. Here's the creator of the Open Tensor Foundation, Jake Steeves, one of the lead creators of Tau, Bittensor. Open source, but with incentives, works really well. He's pointing to a chart that shows how productive the agents on Ridges are. So Eric Schmidt totally in line with the vision of Ridges. So is Ridges Subnet 62 successful at what it's trying to do? A lot of these crypto projects promise a lot. Can they deliver? That's all that matters, right? So many crypto projects talk about their technology, talk about what they want to do. What are they actually doing? Ridges has a plan to disrupt the $400 billion per year software engineering market. That's a massive market. Are they on their way to disrupting that $400 billion per year software engineering market? Well, for starters, Anthropic spent $100 million plus on getting Claude to 75%. Anthropic, which is a multi-billion-dollar massive AI company, spent $100 million on getting Claude to 75% success rate. Bittensor Subnet 62 has permissionally incentivized thousands of miners globally to achieve 66.8% from zero in 45 days. Exponentially fast. That's the power of distributed blockchain technology. It's way more efficient. It's way faster. It's way more cost effective. Anthropic spent $100 million. What about Ridges? $644,000, just $650K to get to 69%, solving SWE bench from zero in 45 days. Anthropic spent hundreds of millions of dollars. That is powerful technology. $600,000 or $100 million plus dollars. Eric Schmidt is talking about open source. That's what we're talking about with Ridges. Powerful technology. And why has it been pumping so much? Because currently it is the most successful application in the entire Bittensor ecosystem. I've showed you this chart before when Ridges was a lot cheaper. What we see is the alignment layer. That's Affine. That's Subnet 120. That's what one of the lead creators of Bittensor, Jake Steeves, that's his Subnet, Subnet 120. That's Affine. It's harnessing the distributed technology from Shoot, Subnet 64, from Grail, Subnet 81, from Gradients, from Targan, from Liam, from Hippias, data storage, decentralized compute. It's harnessing it all, it's aligning it, and it's feeding it to this powerful Ridges model, harnessing the tech from these different subnets. Let's compare the cost to run against centralized competitors. This is where it gets unbelievably massive, the power of this technology, where competitors can cost upwards of $50 a day with heavy usage. Running on Shoot, which is decentralized compute, Subnet 64, as the inference backend allows us to massively subsidize cost at subscriptions of $2 to $5 per day. That's like 10% as expensive as centralized competitors. That's why Ridges is able to operate so effectively and produce revolutionary technology at a fraction of the cost. This is the entire vision of Bittensor. So Ridges appears to have a two-phase go-to-market approach. What they're doing right now is proving the concept and the technology. They're having miners compete around the world to create the smartest AI software agents on the planet. They have a winner takes all emissions incentive mechanism. So the smartest miner takes home the most emissions, and we're talking a massive amount of emissions. Miners who win only 3 days a month on Ridge's AI earn more than staff at OpenAI, which created ChatGPT. Bittensor Subnet 62 is cooking hard. Trajectory is surpassing Anthropic and Cursor in top coding benchmarks within a year, probably way sooner. World-changing technology. That's why this subnet, this crypto asset is absolutely pumping. Again, Raoul Pal is saying crypto is going to become a massive asset class. We're trying to find the assets that are providing life-changing returns. Ridges has already provided massive returns for its early investors. So open source, like Eric Schmidt is talking about, open source creates a both competitive but collaborative environment. Because if one miner wins, that increases the value of the Ridges token, the software platform. And so all the miners that are competing for these Tau emissions benefit from that. So it's competitive and it's collaborative. So we have people all around this. We have the smartest people on the planet literally competing for the Ridges token. And so here's what we have to look forward to. I mentioned a two-phase go-to-market approach. Well, again, first stage is doing what they're doing super successfully, obviously. Well, with 192 miners constantly competing and collaborating on iterating the agent, we plan to roll out an autonomous end-to-end agent that can solve simple problems very soon, similar to Claude Code. So they have a product launch in September. They're rolling out the ability to make revenue. If they can actually compete with big tech, which clearly they're proving the ability to do, and they can start generating revenue. Other subnets within the Bittensor ecosystem could potentially pay Ridges for this platform, for this technology. And so they have a product launching in September. That's supposed to generate revenue. That revenue is going to go to the miners, and it's a flywheel. So that is where we are. That's why it's been pumping. That's just one subnet within Bittensor. We talk about them all the time. If you want to learn more about Ridges, there's a link to https://rebrand.ly Ridges_AI in the video description. But again, we've seen massive returns for this subnet. There's undiscovered, undervalued assets across the crypto world. We talk about ICP all the time. We talk about Chainlink all the time. We talk about Bittensor all the time. Revolutionary technology. The goal is life-changing returns. Very, very, very possible to get there.